You want to stay here for a second?
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We apologize. We were having some technical difficulties, but we are here and we are moving forward. So thank you. Would you be so kind to share? We appreciate you sharing. Hello, Crystal. And if you would put what city or state you are from. Hello, Crystal. Hello, Elwood. Hello, Paulette. Hello, Leslie. I see North Carolina is here. Let's give a few minutes since we got a late start. Thank you. If you guys would share, we appreciate it. Hello, Fred. Thank you, son. I think we're good to come. Appreciate you. Hello, Chris Green. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I see you, Durham, North Carolina. Thank you. Hello, Tony, Norfolk, Virginia. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you so much. Continue to share. Hello, Carmen. Thank you for being with us tonight. I appreciate it so very much. Tag people, share, let everyone know the conversation is ready to begin. Hello, Davida. Thank you for being with us tonight. That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. Hello, Alicia. I know that means that Dallas, Texas is with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. The audience is building, looking great. Thank you. Continue to share and tag people. Let everyone know we are here. The conversation will soon begin. Again, I apologize for the late start. Hello, Shanae. Thank you for being with us tonight. Awesome. Awesome. Hello, Jennifer. Thank you for being with us tonight. Yes, this is going to be a great conversation. You don't want to miss this. So I appreciate your patience. I was like, oh no, this is going to happen. Andre Sanders, thank you for joining us tonight. Let me know where you're from. Awesome. Sherry Todd, thank you for joining us tonight. Michelle Pugh, thank you for joining. Appreciate it so very much. Hello, Suzanne. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tracy Simmons, thank you for joining us tonight. Tracy, where are you from? I don't recognize your name. Where are you from? I appreciate you showing up. Continue to share. Continue to tag people. Thank you. I see you tagging. Thank you. I see you, Cynthia Dance. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, New Jersey. All right, awesome. Thank you for being with us. That's my home. Thank you for being with us tonight. Fantastic. Awesome. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm giving everybody a few minutes to come on. You guys know this is bothering me because you know I like to start on time. but I appreciate, I want to give people a chance. I don't want you to miss any of this conversation. All right. Continue to share, continue to like, continue to comment throughout. Let's get this going. Hello, everyone. My name is Donna Porter, and I want to thank you for joining me for a conversation with law enforcement officers. Over the last several months, it's been my privilege to use the platform of social media to host some very powerful and necessary conversations. You can find those conversations on Facebook and also on YouTube. This is my 9th conversation, and I am honored to have it on 9/11. I usually start each of my conversations by reading the names of the Black men and women who have been killed. But due to 9/11, I thought tonight I would honor those who died. As I began to scroll through the list of names, I was overwhelmed and reminded of how devastating this was. There was no way I could name them all. But due to tonight's topic, I could not have this conversation on this day without honoring those law enforcement officers who are due honor. The terrorist attacks on September the 11th, 2001, caused more law enforcement line of duty deaths than any other single incident in American history. One officer was killed when United Flight 93 crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, as he and other passengers attempted to regain control of the plane from the hijackers. 71 officers were killed when the 2 World Trade Center buildings collapsed in New York City. Dozens more have passed away in the years following as the direct result of illnesses contracted while working in the hazardous conditions immediately following the attacks in New York. Tonight, I start this conversation by paying tribute to the law enforcement officers representing 10 different agencies who died as a direct result of 9/11 terrorist attacks. We're going to pause for a moment of silence on behalf of those officers. There's some crazy stuff going on. I realize that tonight's conversation will be challenging and somewhat difficult at times. I know that many are very angry with policemen. I understand that there are a diversity of emotions that have erupted due to certain situations and tragedies that we have all seen and or heard. This conversation is in no way to demean law enforcement as a whole, for there are no stereotypical police officers, although tonight we will discuss the issues. As I was preparing for this conversation, I reached out to find officers of different ethnicities who would be willing to participate. I quickly came to realize that although many would love to speak, they are not able to speak. With that being said, I want to thank my guests for their willingness and boldness to have this conversation. I'm going to ask that you guys would introduce yourself. Emmanuel, would you start? Would you introduce yourself to the audience tonight?
All right. I'm Emmanuel Peterson. I've been in the military as a law enforcement, and right now I'm a federal police officer. I'm also still in the field, school, doing criminal justice and whatnot. I'm only 11 years in law enforcement, but I've seen a lot.
Do you have children? Tell me about your family and stuff like that too.
Of course, I have three daughters, ages 12, 11, 9. And then I got the little guy, 3 years old, married to a lovely woman, Heather Peterson. Yep, that's pretty much it.
You did good. You'll be able to go, to be home now. I had to make sure you covered that right.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me again, 11 years? 11 years in, and what kind of officer are you?
Federal.
Federal? Okay. All right, Tim Danzy, introduce yourself to the audience tonight.
Thank you. My name is Tim Danzy, and I am retired happily after 30 years of law enforcement. I am married to Bridget Danzy. We have 5 children, and every last one of them are grown. And I got 3 grandsons that I love very much.
Yay! Yay! All right. So you had 30 years of experience in law enforcement. And
Yes.
Where was that at?
I did 30 years. I did 25 in the city of Newark and 5 in corrections.
All right, 25 in Newark, New Jersey, and 5 in correction. Awesome. Emmanuel, why did you choose to participate in tonight's conversation?
I chose to participate, being a younger officer, being involved with what's going on right now. Like I said, I've seen it all from military to now, and that's pretty much why.
Because of what you've seen?
Yes, ma'am.
Tim Dancy, why did you choose to participate in tonight's conversation?
Well, I chose for a couple of reasons. The first one being that I love God. Let me start there. And we have to learn to be truthful in the things that we've seen and the things that we've done. Sometimes it becomes a hassle because we're afraid to say anything because of our peers. And because I am retired, there's nothing that they can say or do to me that will even matter.
That's why I brought you on. Because you can't get in trouble. Awesome. These conversations all started for me with the brutal death of George Floyd. You both have law enforcement experience and being a Black man experience. Emmanuel, did you see the video of George Floyd?
Yes, ma'am.
Please tell me how seeing that video impacted you.
Seeing that video impacted me by many different ways. Throughout my years of law enforcement, there's never been a situation where it should take 3 police officers to take down one gentleman, unless he's under the influence of certain drugs and he has some power that no one can stop. The knee being on the neck, that should never happen. That should never happen. I was pretty disgusted with that. He was helpless, and that should have never happened.
All right, Tim Danzy.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see the video?
I did, and I personally was disgusted behind it. Understanding that, like Emmanuel said, sometimes it takes more than one to take a person down. But at that instant, he was already in cuffs and he was already placed in one car. For whatever reason that they took him out of the car, this, that, and the other, that they did not show. I can't speak to that, but I can speak to the fact that it was disgusting because, number one, he's still a human being. And I also need to say this because this is something that troubles me. I hear a lot of these commercials that go on and talk about the ASPCE, about all these animals that they cling to, that they need to rescue and things like that there. But when it comes to Black lives, oh well, we really don't need to rescue them, and that's an issue for me.
All right. All right. Emmanuel,
Yes, ma'am.
do you believe there is systemic racism within law enforcement in this country? Why or why not?
Yes, ma'am. There's definitely a problem, an issue with it. It's also an issue with hiring Black officers. You know, even with within the ranks, it's an issue with that. You know, it has to stop. It's been needed to stop years ago.
All right, Tim Dancy, do you believe there is systemic racism within law enforcement in this country? Why or why not?
Absolutely, absolutely. Problem that I'm having with that whole thing is when I hear Blue Lives Matter. Yes, it's true. Blue Lives Matter, but see, blue is a color that we're not looking at as far as if I don't have my uniform on, I'm still a Black man. Does my life matter? Um, I share that because of the fact that I can remember being in the being a detective, and we're not required as detectives to wear uniforms. And I was driving through a town that you may remember, Pastor, and that's called South Boundbrook
Mhm.
in New Jersey. I'm driving, and I had an officer going the opposite way. Now, I'm in a suit and tie, and at that time, I used to smoke a tobacco pipe. Let me clarify that, a tobacco pipe. Um, and I'm driving down the street, got my windows down. It's the summertime, on my way to work. And the guy saw me, he was going the opposite direction. He pulled me over, actually did a U-turn, pulled me over and started screaming at me. And once he found out that I was a police officer, he kind of backed up, shuffled off, got in his car and took off because I explained to him, listen, you're not going to talk to me that way. Get me a supervisor out here and I'll give you the information you need. Other than that, we're not doing any of that, you know. But these are the things. So in other words, it didn't matter that I was an officer to him because I wasn't in uniform, and
Mhm.
he could not see if blue lives matter. He saw a Black life that did not matter to him.
That's so real. That's so real. Emmanuel, have you had experiences as well as an officer, but also being pulled over or arrested, or any instances of racism with police?
Um, I don't recall any other than in high school. Um, there was a narcotics bus at Sanderson High School one year, and I was coming back from lunch, and there was a gentleman. I've seen him in the mall. He was undercover. Seen him in the mall, seen him all over the places, and I was like, okay, what is this guy doing in the middle of the road at the high school? He's like, where you coming from? I'm like, I'm coming from lunch. He's like, you belong here? I was like, of course, I go to school here. Well, let me see your ID. So, just unnecessary stuff. Like, why would I want to come to a school in the middle of a day if I need to be there? And then you have you treat me like, I'm some type of trash. So, that hurt my feelings, but it also gave me ammo to go ahead and join law enforcement.
Wow. Well, both of you have children. Let me start with Tim Dancy. What have you told your children regarding being confronted by police officers? I'm very interested if, as a Black man, but also a former law enforcement officer, if you said the same stuff that the rest of us have said to your children.
Yes, I have. I had a conversation. I have 4 boys and 1 girl, and I had conversations with all of my children. Listen, you get stopped. You know, Don't reach for nothing. Um, Keep your hands in plain sight. Roll all your windows down so that they'll see that there's not movement to want to say that you did something in a certain way or a certain manner that caused them to react. So they all know, turn your car off, turn your head, turn your lights on inside. I don't even want your car running. So therefore they can't think, say, oh, they put the car in gear and tried to pull off. No, this is what you do. So yeah, I've had that conversation. And with my oldest grandson, who was 18, I've had that conversation with him even after I retired and even still now, because I explained to him, because of his age, that sometimes they look at him, he drives a nice little car, um, and he's got his friends and everything else. And I explained to him, listen, when you get approached by the police, don't you don't have to go word for word, tit for tat. Just okay, that's the end of it. Let them have their say. We'll have our say later on.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you have one daughter?
One girl.
Okay. Did you have a different conversation with your daughter than you had with your sons?
Um, no, because my daughter is just as as tough as my sons. I mean, in fact, I think she's tougher. She's one of those ones that you cannot mess with her brothers. Um, that's the way she is. She's not going to let you mess with her brothers. And she's the second oldest, but she has younger brothers and an older brother. So therefore, her attitude is, don't mess with my brothers. So no, I didn't have a different conversation with her.
Same conversation. Emmanuel, let's see, your children are vary in age. Have you had the conversation with them yet?
I have not had the conversation with them yet, but I will definitely do the same as Tim. I'm telling them, roll the windows down, turn the lights on, take the keys out, put them on the dashboard, turn all your cell phone cameras on. No deferred movements or anything like that, because that gives them an opportunity to come up with some type of bullcrap response for a situation that should not happen.
I'm very interested. Are you two thinking that way because you know what police officers do based upon having police experience, or are you thinking that way and doing what you do because you are a Black man and having that experience? Emmanuel, Emmanuel, go first.
It's coming from both,
Mm-hmm.
because even when I'm off duty, I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared. I'm all right. I carry everywhere I go, so that even puts me in greater harm. So I make sure I let them know, hey, I got a firearm. I got concealed carry, or either I'm law enforcement, one or two. It's a mixture of both.
Tim, what about you?
Also, I too say it's both. The thing about it is that I too carry off duty, license to carry anywhere in the United States by the federal law. And the thing about it is that if I get stopped by the police, the first thing I let them know in advance is I do have a firearm, only because of the fact that I don't want them to make a mistake and say, oh, we need to search your car and see my weapon, or see my weapon on my hip or in my bag, and want to get stupid, because guess what? Bullets go both ways. That's being 100% honest. It's not that I would try to hurt anybody, but at the end of the day, I let them know up front I have a weapon. And that's when, if most cops will ask you, oh, are you law enforcement? I'm retired. Here's my ID and everything else, but I do have my weapon.
Wow. I would like everyone to listen to something very carefully. On my honor, I will never betray my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always maintain the highest ethical standards and uphold the values of my community and the agency I serve, so help me, God. This is a law enforcement oath of honor. This oath is to affirm the standards of integrity, bravery, and honor to the community and law. The oath starts out by saying, on my honor, I will never betray my integrity, my character, or the public trust. Let's talk about public trust. I understand that there is good and bad within everything and every organization. There's right and wrong with everything and within every organization. And I understand that the publicity of the bad and the wrong makes it more difficult for the good and the right. Also, the publicity of the bad and the wrong makes it more difficult for the public to trust the good and the right. This has created a culture of distrust. The community is also spoken of in this oath. There's a lot of talk right now about community policing. As I was researching, I heard someone say police officers must see themselves as community partners, and the community must see that as well. Emmanuel, how do we create partnerships when we have created a culture of distrust? Talk to me about community policing and the distrust that has been created.
Ooh, I'll pass that one off to Tim. Come on, Tim, help me out.
You want to go after Tim? You want Tim? Tim, come on, Tim.
My last assignment before I retired, thanks be unto God, gave me a chance to understand. I was in the clergy affairs / community affairs unit. The city of Newark has a clergy affairs, community affairs unit, which is very important because you have to understand that we are the community. We are people that have to deal with the community every day. You have to be able to know how to have a conversation that they may and they may not like. And then you also have to understand that you might have to lay hands. I mean, it ain't about shooting, but it's about laying hands. Sometimes you got to lay your hands for the understanding to become an understanding. That does not mean you do not love your community. That does not mean that you will not fight for your community. That does not mean you will allow your community to be overwhelmed with hostile policing.
Very good. Come on, Emmanuel, jump in there.
Yeah, like you said, we are the community, on duty and off duty. There's going to be times where you're on duty, like you said, you got to lay hands, and then the next moment you're off duty, and you see the same individual, maybe trying to make your food, or either in the grocery store or something like that. I act the same way at work and off duty. I'm kind to everyone. I don't care. They call me all kinds of names. I'm still going to be polite. I'm still going to be nice. I'm going to help out. I'm like I said, I'm the same person every single time, even in the community, outside the community.
And to act, if I can,
Yes.
that same information that Emmanuel just said. Yes, I'm the same person on when I was working and when I wasn't working. One of the best advices that I received was from an inmate when I was in correction.
Wow.
And he said, let me tell you something, young buck. He said, you want to make it in the law enforcement community? Treat people the way you want to be treated. I dealt with that in corrections, and I dealt with that when I was on the streets. I treated people the way I wanted to be treated because I then understood better on how to treat people based on that one little conversation. How do I wish to be treated?
So good. Treat people the way you want to be treated. The next line of the oath says, I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I would like us to talk about the conflict between fraternity versus humanity. We know that law enforcement officers are a family, a brotherhood, a fraternity. We saw that so clear by the George Floyd tragedy by the officers who stood by and watched. Does the fraternity become more important than the humanity? Emmanuel, you gonna tell me to go to Tim first?
I'll take this. I'll take this one.
Let's talk about the challenge. Let's talk about the challenge between this fraternity and the humanity. Go ahead.
I want to point out the one young Black lady that made social media. They were both law enforcement, and there was a white officer. You know, he was doing wrong, and she came up and grabbed him. That's what needs to happen. We need to check each other. You know, he could have started a whole new thing, but she grabbed him and took him up out of there. So accountability definitely needs to happen. It definitely needs to happen.
Accountability needs to happen.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, you're good.
Because the one thing that a lot of people don't talk about is, you know, the arrest and the criminal history of police officers. You know, there's a lot of criminals out here that are police officers running around, and we don't say nothing about them. Nobody wants to say anything about them. You know, their history needs to be put out there, but who's saving them? I want to know who's saving them, who's not putting them out there.
Oh yeah, we're gonna hit that too. All right, Tim, let's talk about this fraternity versus humanity. What do you have to share with us?
Fraternity versus humanity. If I take my uniform on, am I still Black? Yes. If I put my uniform on, am I still Black? Yes. When we talk about fraternity versus humanity, we have to understand that our human right to be human is who I am. I'm a Black man. What my job function was an officer. To understand that, again, treating people the way I would like to be treated makes the difference with humanity and fraternity. Because guess what? There are people in the fraternity that look at me and say, oh, that N-word or whatever the case may be, behind my back. You understand what I'm saying? Because because I am Black. But the thing about it is that, like I can say about a lot of the guys that I dealt with, because of this situation with the law enforcement situation, as far as the Floyd case, I've heard people always want to talk about his record. No, his record, it means nothing because his life was taken and it didn't need to be.
So that's so good. The oath also talks about honor, integrity, character, ethical standards, and values. Everything law enforcement stands for is based upon these things of each individual officer. We must look at the dysfunction of the system. There needs to be better screening, field training, cultural sensitivity training, de-escalation training. There needs to be consistent mental health assessments. Even after we give the officers all of the training and the tools for the job, when we see that it is not handled appropriately, in this country, we make them gypsy cops. In law enforcement in the United States, a gypsy cop, also known as a wandering police officer, is a police officer who frequently transfers between police departments, having a record of misconduct or unsuitable job performance. Emmanuel, let's talk about the obligation to gypsy cops.
Yeah, this is the spot that I've been waiting for.
Go ahead.
Now, with my agency and the other federal agencies, we train more than any other law enforcement agency out there. We shoot 6 times a year. Every quarter we got to do ethics training. I mean, it's a lot of training we got to do and sit down and do. And they make sure they give us time to do that, you know, being the federal government. you know, they got to look good. So there's that. And then training, combatives training. We do combatives training 4 times a year. You know, we de-escalate. Verbal judo, you know, sometimes, you know, you don't have to pull out mace or either baton, you know, just talk them down. You know, I get headaches a lot. So, you know, I try to talk people down all the time because there's days I don't want to fight. So there's that. You know, then there's the record thing that I was talking about. It's sad because I've seen from the top chiefs that have had criminal records and they try to slide up into a job because just because you can't get into the city don't mean you can't get into the county. Just because you can't get into the county don't mean you can't get in the state, and it goes all the way up to the federal. So they're gonna keep trying regardless. So those are a lot of major issues right there.
Wow. Tim, what do you
Yes,
what do you want to
ma'am.
say about these gypsy cops?
Well, I can't speak on a lot of agencies like that. I can only speak on the fact of Newark PD.
Hmm.
One thing about it is that from the from the mayors that were on to the police directors to the chief of police that were on, if you messed up, they was quick to want to take your job because number one, again, Newark is a predominantly black city, and listen. We're not having that. After the '67 riots, a lot of stuff changed. Whereas it was like, hey, let's put a lid on certain things that will and will not happen in this city. Um, and that to me gives reference to character in law enforcement or these gypsy cops that want to come from other agencies and everything else with records like that there because there's a thing called the Rice Bill, which gave permission for cops that were leaving one agency to go to another had they gotten laid off or whatever the case may be. But you can best believe we have our department has a group of people who do an extensive background, even on those officers that are transferring in, because it's like, listen, you coming into a city that if you decide to get hot, they're gonna get hot with you.
Wow. You brought up something, and I made a little note here. I want to ask this question. Is policing different and even training different depending upon the area that you're going to work in?
Absolutely.
The neighborhoods, the
Absolutely.
people. Talk to me about that. Tim.
Okay. First and foremost, again, we talk about community. Um, you got to understand your community where you live, first and foremost. Again, if you think about it, and I can only speak again for the northern areas, um, you don't have as many shootings of of the community. That doesn't mean that you haven't had people that had again hands laid on, but you don't have that many shootings because again, especially um, in Newark, gotta if you lay hands, Joker get out of line. Sometimes you got to lay hands, but it ain't about taking his life. Um, the training that we deal with or people deal with in law enforcement it's supposed to represent the community in which you are governed to govern. Doesn't always work out that way, but guess what? In the long run, when you take the job as a police officer, you have to understand what you will and will not do.
What you will and will not do. Emmanuel, what do you want to say regarding that?
Like you said, you took that oath, and you should you should know better. You know, don't come into law enforcement if you ain't respectful. You know, I tell my kids every single day, you better make sure you saying yes, ma'am, no, sir. And if I find out, I'm gonna tear you up. That's how it should be in law enforcement. You know, give that respect.
and get the respect. Listen,
Exactly.
it's a two-way street because again,
Exactly.
how do you wish to be treated? I cannot go on a scene with a situation of any kind, cursing at the people and screaming at them, because they're not doing what I want them to do, or and I'm violating their civil rights. That doesn't work for me. Um, I should have said this from the beginning.
Go ahead.
I became a police because I didn't like the police.
Love it.
I mean, because of the fact that dealing with certain individuals, certain situations, it was like the police is always doing this, the police is always doing that. You become something that you want to make a change in, and
Yeah.
and becoming a police officer for me was to make a change in how I viewed the police, and to understand that I needed to make sure that people viewed me as Tim Danzy, not just as the police, but as a person that was willing and still am willing to help my community. Um, I need to say this, and it's very important for me. Um, and I'm grateful that my pastor, Bishop George and Lady Mary Seawright of Abundant Life Family Worship Church in Newark, excuse me, in New Brunswick, um, saw something in me when God called me into the ministry. They saw that God had a place for me, and they made sure that my voice was being heard, um, because of the fact that as a retired police officer, understanding something, we are all called to that ministry, and what I mean by that is we have a ministry to tell the truth and to love everybody. The
Mhm.
job, you ain't gonna like everybody, but you still have to love everybody. And then you have to turn around and understand that as a police officer, that community which you took an oath to protect and serve, everybody in that community, whether you like them or not, you took an oath to protect and serve. I can't protect you if I'm trying to kill you, and I can't serve you if I'm trying to kill you. So what do I need to do? I need to come up with a better solution to say, you know what? I have to hear your side of the story and then make a judgment from there.
I love that. Do you see policing as ministry?
I do. It is a ministry because, again, um, just like I said, you have a job and a duty in ministry to be what? Faithful to the word, right? So if I'm faithful to the word, especially in ministry, as a police officer, do I not need to be faithful to the community
Yeah.
in which I serve?
Yes, so good. Emmanuel, jump in there. Let's talk about policing as ministry, how you view the community that you serve.
Um, I've I've been all over the place, and then like you said, to me it seems like I get a lot of people who come to me and ask me for advice. Whether it could be anything, and then by the time you know it, I got like a million um, requests on Facebook, so that way they can ask me for more and more, you know, questions and things. They're dealing with. But definitely, we, me and Tim are the type of people that I see we can talk to anybody,
Right.
and we'll know how to deal with it. There ain't no need for cussing. There ain't no need for calling boy and all this other stuff. Just talk to him just like a regular human being.
You guys are causing. I'm writing some extra stuff here, but I wanna hit a couple of things. Let's talk about some situations that are hot right now. Let's talk about Breonna Taylor, the situation, and everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen to the policeman. Tim, jump in there. What do you
Um,
want to say about that?
to that instance, um, it was okay to understand that no knock warrants are served in law enforcement. to understand Breonna Taylor's boyfriend's point of view was he thought somebody was breaking into his house, so he jumped up and by law he's licensed to have a weapon in his house, and he fired. He didn't look. He didn't. I don't know if the police announced who they were after the fact or before the fact when they went in. I don't know because I wasn't there. Um, it makes sense to hear from all sides. I mean, if there was any video cameras, footage, or whatever the case may be, with the federal government now having mostly all, if not all, police law enforcement officers wear a body cam. It's to record a lot of people don't like the body cam because they're like, oh man, what is it? What if it catches me doing X, Y, Z? Then you know you shouldn't be doing it. If you feel that way, I mean, the body cam can help you or hurt you, and it depends on what you're doing. I mean, one thing about it is that if you're there's a saying that we used to say in masonry even, and it's that it used to say, "My life you may take, my integrity never." You cannot take my integrity to not to understand that how I view certain things. Like I said, with the Breonna case, I'm still up in the air with it only because I don't have all the information about it.
What about you, Emmanuel?
Um, it's pretty much the same here. I'm still waiting to hear back more. But I do know from what I just saw recently that one of the officers, they did have a body cam on, but when they did the report, they said they didn't have one, but they took pictures. So they look silly now. And like you said, the body cameras, it can save you or hurt you. And I like cameras. And the reason why I'm gonna shift for a little bit, because I was on a traffic stop. There was a lady, her light was out, and I let my corporal know, and I let my supervisor know, as well as dispatch. So we had cameras rolling everywhere. So I let her know, hey, your front light's out. I'm gonna write you a warning, this, and that. She was like, no, I just worked on it. It works. I was like, well, ma'am, you can get out, you can check it. So got out, it wasn't working. Then tapped on it, started working. So then she goes, oh, you guys are just trying to set me up, this, and that. I was like, no, ma'am, your light was out. We got camera footage, everything was out. So she tried to make a big stink out of it. Then she tried to do other stuff to get me in trouble. But I had my supervisor, I had my corporal, I had dispatch, and I had the cameras. So it saved me.
So it can work. It can be a benefit for both people, the law enforcement officer as well as the community person as well.
Yes.
What about Jacob Blake? Who wants to jump in? Come on, Tim.
Emmanuel.
Well, you have to remind me of which one. I mean, there's so much.
Wait a minute. See, this is a beautiful moment right here, right? Because what they just said, there's been so many.
Yeah.
Right.
There's been so many. So let's don't even identify different individuals. Let's just talk about there's been so many. And how does knowing that affect you? Because let me tell you, from the time of George Floyd, and I started doing these conversations, and every time I got ready to do a conversation, I would read the list of names, and every week almost, I had to add to the list. Someone else now been shot, killed, whatever. Let's just talk about the environment. And I know you understand then why the community feels the way it feels regarding police. Let's talk about that. Why the people are feeling the way they feel. Tim, you take it first.
Racism is taught. and it's spoken of a lot by the commander in chief of this country. Um, the thing about it is that when you start to understand, I saw a video of a guy, and he just so happened to be a Caucasian male, and he had a gun, and the officer kept telling him to put it down, and you know they told him about 10 or 15 times when I saw it when I saw that video, and I'm sitting there saying, well, at that point, the first two times when you tell a person put your weapon down, and they still want to hold on to their weapon, how many are you going to wait till they pull the trigger before you react? No. If you're not close enough to do anything, then the statute says that in that I am allowed as an officer to use deadly force in protection of my life or someone else's life. I don't know what the person was going to do with the weapon, but because that now had he been black, would they have given that many chances, or would they have just shot? That can go both ways. The situation with the young man that had the axe handle in his hand. Listen, I can't speak to that issue because I wasn't there. I know what I would have done, and that was to take a listen. If I tell you twice to drop your weapon, and you decide you want to keep coming at me with it, then understand something. I love you, but now you're going to go see the maker and explain your situation because I'm coming home to my family and I'm being 100 with that. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Emmanuel, jump in.
I'm pretty much the same way. If I ask you to drop it once, and I give you that second chance, that's all you got. But you know, I was looking at some picture somebody had up, and it was about the Charleston Nine, and they were like, "Okay, he just shot and killed all these people. Why did he walk? That should have been somebody who should have been dropped dead." You know, it's just it just my mind goes crazy when I think about this stuff. You know, we get one chance and one chance only, but everybody else in the world gets more than one chance.
Again, because of the fact that racism is taught, and it's about the fact that when you raise two children, one's white, one's black, and you raise them in the same household, they don't grow up with that attitude of, you know what, I hate him because he's black.
That's right.
And or I hate him because he's white. They grow up loving each other because of their environment.
Right.
The law enforcement community has to understand the environment in which we live. We have to understand that one, everybody's circumstance is different. Two, if I'm going to come on you, let's come with the same respect because would I want somebody not to give me some kind of warning or some kind of a heads up, especially being the fact that if when we look at the situation with the Charleston Nine, how was he not taken out? How was he not taken out? Because of the color of his skin? Had it been anybody else, would he have been taken out? Absolutely. Let's call a spade a spade. Because again, when we talk about the issue of the way law enforcement sees the black community, they see sometimes as a threat. And that's because of the embedded racism that they've been taught.
All right. I'm thinking here. Protests, and riots, everything that's been going on. Of course, protests and riots are two different things. Looting, all the stuff that's going on. Just give me your view of what you've been seeing happening in the streets, what you've been seeing on the news media. Emmanuel?
I get myself in trouble because I'm a late night guy, so I watch all these protests. And like I said, there's a difference between protesting and rioting. The shooting with the underage male, I watched the whole entire thing, and my mind was blown with that. It was just nasty. Weapons, to me, yes, you have the right to display your firearm, things like that. But weapons, to me, should not come to a protest. It should not come to a riot, because that's just asking for trouble, and it'll end up bad. But that night, there were gentlemen even making threats to that young man way before. And a lot of people are saying, oh, no, it's sorry because he shot somebody and then they chased him. No, they were chasing him because they were talking pure crap to that young man before. And, he shouldn't have been there with that rifle. And it's hard. But like you said, there's a difference between protesting and rioting. With the rioting, looting, and things like that, I don't see what good it's doing for us. I don't see what good it's doing, because it's tearing up our community. Then there's the trust thing. Then to me, it may just start all over again just because you're out here looting.
Tim, what about you?
To that thing, protesting and rioting. Protesting deals with the fact that, when we talk about protesting, we look at it being non-violent. Don't always turn out that way. As far as the rioting and looting goes, it goes to the point of, and I'm paraphrasing from someone who said this to me, which was my daughter. She said, "Dad," I too said, the rioting should not be. Her response was, "Dad, you get rioting when people fail to hear you protesting peacefully."
Wow.
To understand that when it becomes a point of, I'm trying to get you to hear me and you're not listening to me, now we're going to tear your stuff up. Although we don't look at the point that your stuff is in my community.
Yeah.
We look at the point of, that's your stuff. You understand what I'm saying? And when you talk about your stuff, do you like it when I'm tearing up your stuff? No, you don't. So we don't like it when you tearing up our community with what you're doing with the racism. The issue that I say is, Walmart has a so-called policy that says, oh, if you got a large item and they don't have a bag for it to go in, then they have a right to check your receipt. If I just paid for my item, there's a law that says you can't detain me to see my receipt. The law says you can't detain me from leaving. How do you force me to stay so that you can check my receipt when you got cameras by your registers and they all register what you bought? So in that instance, if it riots to that matter of a Walmart, what happens? It's because it's Walmart taking their stuff and not understanding my stuff. My protesting, my trying to leave peacefully after I've done purchased my item. You need to see my receipt. For what reason? And then it depends on the color of your skin.
All right. Let's talk about defunding the police. I'm looking forward to
That'll never happen. That'll never happen. I'm gonna stop you right there, because number one, first and foremost, if we talk about defunding the police, all right, then you're also talking about chaos and anarchy. And to understand that, when we start to understand that there are the Bible says to obey the laws of the land. When you talk about, well, we're going to defund the police, then guess what? You've already made a mistake, because guess what? It's not going to happen. We've already witnessed that at this point, Emmanuel being a federal officer, when you try to defunct a police department, guess what happens? The government sends the federal government in.
That's worse.
And now it becomes a bigger picture, because they don't live in the community. That's the first thing. Secondly, they're coming in with the onset to say, you know what? We don't live here. Let's just take them out and keep it moving.
Wow. Wow. Emmanuel, what do you say about that? You said that's worse.
Oh yeah, that's the truth. You know, you want to defund the police if you want to. It's gonna be the worst thing you ever done, because the federal government's gonna come in. They're gonna bring every federal person in, bring military in, and they just gonna do what they want to do, and they're gonna keep you in the house.
Martial
You won't
law.
be able to come out, and you know, try to do something towards the federal government or you know, the military. You probably won't walk out alive. Probably won't, because I mean they out there in Oregon snatching up people now and charging them federally, you know, and that's you know, the West Coast right now, they need to stop.
How do we regain trust in law enforcement as a people? How do we regain that trust? And yeah, let's start with that. Emmanuel, how do we regain the trust?
I think, in my eyes, I think it's just not law enforcement. It's the courts, it's corrections, and law enforcement. Those three things, they need changes. Need new ADs, you need new judges, need new sheriffs, everything. It all needs to change. You need to make sure you have, you know, you got your Black officers, Hispanic officers, Asian. You need a mix. Can't just be one. You know, sending a young white officer into the hood to stop an incident, that ain't gonna go good. It's not gonna go good.
Tim, what do we do with this trust issue?
We have to start with justice for all, not just us, but justice for all. We have to understand that at the point of what happens to one should happen to the other. I agree with Emmanuel in regards to talking about the court system, this, that, and the other. But you can't have one law for blacks and browns and one law for whites. And because it changes the dynamics, then you'll never get the trust of the community, because they're saying, well, listen, I stole a piece of candy. They gave me 20 years. He stole a piece of candy and they gave him 2 weekends. I mean, that's the system that we have to change the system first. The system must change in order for you to get that community trust back. But then too, the law enforcement community also has to change and understand that Black lives do matter. And when I say Black lives do matter, it can't just matter if I'm Black life in a uniform. It's got to matter to you because you're part of the community that took an oath to protect and serve. And if you're doing your job and you're protecting and serving, then guess what? We can rebuild them in the community.
How do we change the system? Tim, how do we change the system?
The system has to change from the top. It has to change from the top. When you have a commander-in-chief that's spewing out hatred, like I said, racism is taught. The United States was always built on racism. And because of the fact that those that were in charge let it go for so long, saying that they are doing it for the good of the people. No, you're not doing it for the good of the people, because the good of the people says justice for all. And justice for all. If it's not justice for all, it can't be just us for a few.
Emmanuel, what do you want to say about that?
Hey, he said it all, justice for all. And, you know, I'm not even going to hit on it. It's just justice for all.
Yeah, how do we get that? How do we change the system? What do we do as a people, what do we do?
It like you said, starts at the top, and you get out there and vote. You got to get people out there that we can trust.
And this election is more than just the presidency. Let's not get the game twisted. We have to understand that we have senators and local government that are saying, hey, it's all right, it's all right. We don't want to expose this whole thing because of the fact that we don't want to lose our job. You can't be afraid to lose your job when you're doing right. Because if you're talking about these same people that have voted you into office, taking your job by voting you out, then what do? Do you then turn around and say, oh, I'm going back to the community and see if I can talk to them and make it better? No, you have to start off by being truthful to them and yourself.
I have a question for you guys. So I kind of asked, what can we do as a people? But I also want to talk about the church, right? The body of Christ. As the church, what can the church do to support law enforcement, to support community, to help with the systems? What should be the objective or the mission of the church regarding this, Tim?
To have a conversation with the police and the community, to understand that the church is a vital part of a community. And if that church is a vital part of the community, then that church is to understand, let's do things whereas the police and the community can come together, have a day of worship, whereas you'll just have the police, even if they're in uniform, and you have your congregation sitting amongst each other, having a conversation and letting them know that, listen, I'm here not only as a police officer, but I'm here because I want to show you that I love you and I want to be able to grow with you. Have a conversation. Be able to say, you know what, the church is the place that you should be able to go to for refuge. The church is and to understand, and then this is gonna freak you out really. The church is not the building that we attend. The church is us.
That's right.
So to go to a place and worship together is one thing, but the church is us. So when you ask the question, how can the church and the police get together? They have to understand what the church is. And the church is the body of Christ, which are the people.
So good. Emmanuel, jump in there.
Same thing. The only time that I've ever seen law enforcement come to church is there's an incident or an election. That's the only time I've seen them come. And I recall seeing the sheriff come to my dad's church just because it was election year. And to me, I'm like, okay, whatever. You need to be here all the time. So build that relationship with the church. That's how it should be done.
I love this. Actually, you guys have just sparked something inside of me, my husband and I being pastors, to be intentional, to build relationships with police within the community and maybe extend invitations to do something together. I really like that. I would encourage other ministries and pastors and leaders out there who are watching, because we can all sit back and complain. We can all sit back and do that, or we can find out, what can I do? What can I do to assist in this manner? I thank you guys for that, for giving me something else to do. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that so much. As the community, what do you think we need to know? Well, matter of fact, one of my last questions if you could leave, Emmanuel, if you could leave any message with this audience, what would it be?
There's probably a few things. I would say put trust into your local law enforcement. You got to put trust in them. You have to obey the law. I know some people don't like obeying the law, but obey the law. Do as the officer says. And one thing I say to myself, if an officer ever, does me wrong, I'd rather be alive with $1 million than dead and in the grave. So I'm gonna do whatever you tell me to do, but guess what? I'm gonna get that money. You do me wrong, I'm gonna get that money. So I suggest everybody just, don't get all mad with the officer. Just do what they say, because I don't want to see any more Black people dying. It just hurts. It hurts.
Tim, what would be your message?
Well, for me, I agree with Emmanuel on those aspects, but I would also say to the community itself, know your rights, but understand in knowing your rights sometimes also means shut up. It means that you live to fight another day, like Emmanuel stated. Um, if you know that the cop is wrong and out of line, you don't argue with them because they'll always have the upper hand. What you do is you do what I tell people all the time. Go to internal affairs. If internal affairs is not giving you your response, go to the prosecutor's office because somebody's going to give you a response and somebody's going to look into it. Once they look into it, they'll see whether or not you did or you did not do it. I can remember an incident that occurred when my son was in high school. I was accused of striking somebody, didn't lay a hand on him. I did tell the person, if you hit me again, I'm going to knock you out. But at that point, the person that I said it to went down to the precinct and filed a complaint against me. I was investigated for 6 months, but then they realized, hey, that never happened. You understand what I mean? And at that point in time, there was really no body cameras being worn. It was like my word against your word. But now, because of there being body cameras and because everybody has a cell phone that has a camera, if you feel that when you get stopped by the police, you can turn your cell phone on, you can put your camera on, and just put it on record. Hey, I don't have to argue. I don't have to fight. I'm dealing with the fact that I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. Um, my message would be to make sure that you do listen. You don't have to respond, but you can always take an action later on.
So good. I just thought of another one. I saw a video of a child was out. I think it was like at one of the protests, or she was outside or whatever, and the police were there. And the child said to the policeman, "Are you going to shoot me?" That was her first impression. I've watched this other video where Black parents were talking to their children about police and what they should do and what they should not do. And I watched our young people crying. I want to hear from you. Like, what do we do? What do we do about our babies who are afraid of policemen? Emmanuel, what do we do?
See, as an officer, when I was up north in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, I brought up a good idea to have little sticker badges and little stickers, little military chains and some other things. And I always kept that with me because I always know there's going to be a child somewhere where I'm going to come across in uniform. So I made sure every time I seen a child, I'd chase them down across the parking lot. Hey, I got this little sticker for you. I got this for you. And, letting them see that I'm doing good, that lets them know that, I'm not going to hurt them. They can come to me if anything ever happens. If a parent or something falls out, then they see us, come to us. That's how I dealt with that. But with the kids, it's hard to explain to them. I don't know if Tim got an easier way, but yeah, it's hard to explain to the children.
For me, it starts with the parent. I'm sorry. It starts with the parents. You can't tell your kid, oh, don't do that because the police will shoot you or your police will do that. How many times have I gone to situations whereas if a child is doing something they have no business doing, the first thing that parent would do is say, you see that police officer over there? He gonna get you if you do. And you start to put a stigmatization on him, and they believe then, oh shoot, if I do this, that cop is gonna get me. If I, that's why I said it starts with the parents. You got to understand. You have to teach your children that listen, as long as you're doing right, it works for you. When you're doing right, sometimes you have an issue. But what kicked off is that if you know you're doing right, hatred can't win over your what you're doing, because the minute you start to hate someone because you've been wronged, you've already allowed the darkness in. And you got to be able to say, you know what, that's an individual. And when you said about that little baby that said, officer, are you going to shoot me? Right then and there, he should have embraced that baby and just gave it a hug and said, you know what? I love you. And no, I'm not going to shoot you. And it was a matter of just showing that point of love to that baby, that baby would have really understood, like, listen, all police aren't out to shoot you. He just gave me love. He just gave me a hug.
Somebody, I'm watching the comments and I saw something, and so I want to bring this out. I didn't plan to, but I want to bring this out because the mindset of like we're hearing you say comply, and someone said, but when we comply, we still die.
That's why I said it before. You said when you comply, you still die. But what you got to understand that person that does that, if you're complying, are you complying with your conversation back and forth? Because now that police officer feels that you antagonized him or her, as opposed to sometimes complying by just, like I said earlier, you turn your recorder on, you just sit there. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I can sit there all day long. I ain't got to like what you're saying. And see, what people fail to understand is that if I don't say anything to you, if whether you have your camera on or not, I got mine recording. I don't have to say a word to you. You said X, Y, give me this. Here you go. Give me that. Here you go. So when you talk about when we comply, we still die. Some people don't comply like that. They comply with, I ain't do nothing. What you gonna do? And it becomes a point of, well, wait a minute. You trying to get your point across by screaming at me. I'm already at a point whereas I'm not gonna let you win. And that's the mindset that becomes a part of when you talk about comply. It's all about saying, when you see guys with videos and they're taping stuff like that there, officer tell you to step back, but you can still record. You ain't got to open your mouth to say nothing to them. Oh, I got a right to stand here and do this. You have a right, but you also have to understand that if I'm giving you a lawful order to comply and to step back, you can still step back and still record. It doesn't change that you're recording, because it can't stop your recording. But what did I do? I complied by stepping back.
I want to share an excerpt of a poem that was written by a chief of police. It's called "If You Could See What I See." If you could see what I have seen, maybe you'd understand. It takes a special kind of person who opts to make a stand. If you could see what I've seen, you might choose other work because you feel that this one takes much more than it's worth. If you could see what I've seen, you'd experience the uncertainty when my family waits to hear from me, knowing it's often dirty. If you could see what I've seen, you'd help to lead the way, hoping to ensure that everyone goes home that day. If you could see what I've seen, the stories are all true, but the scars are not always visible, not even to you. If you could see what I've seen, you would understand what I do. It's not in vain. The reason is simple. I do it all for you. I believe there's much work to be done. In the midst of all of the confusion, the disagreements, the heartache, the senseless killings, the racial injustice, the misunderstandings, the good cops and the bad cops, I still have great respect and appreciation for law enforcement. I want to thank those great law enforcement officers who've chosen to serve the public, to be apart from their families, to risk their own lives and safety to protect the lives and safety of others. My name is Donna Porter. I am the daughter of a retired police chief, and I approve this message. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to thank you so much, Emmanuel Peterson and Tim Danzy. I want to thank all of you out there for sharing with us tonight. Thank you for joining me. Please join me again for another conversation, September the 25th. The flyers will be out tomorrow. I'll begin to market that. So this will continue, and you can find all the other conversations I've done on my YouTube page. Just look for Donna Porter and look for my face, and you'll see all of the conversations. This just took care of number 9. Thank you, guys. Everybody, have a great night. Hey, and comply and live. Comply and live. And we get ready to go out. We got to do some stuff in the community now. We got to bridge a gap here with police officers, law enforcement officers, and the church, not the building, but the body of Christ. I'm excited. Thank you guys, everybody, tonight. God bless you.
Good night, all.
All right.
Everybody saying good night, good night, good night.